Welcome everybody who's already um, clicked on the link and gotten in. We're just going to give everybody a little bit of time um, to kind of get settled, get a cup of coffee or your lunch or whatever you're going to do, multitasking while we do this. I was just having a conversation with our guest, Josh Wollaston, who is actually from the area here. We're in Eastern PA, just north of Philadelphia, and we're in a little town called Ambler, and he was just telling me his first fix and flip was in this town. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Small world.
small world. Yeah, he's right down the 95 from me here. So one of these days we'll get him up here for lunch. So,
I
um,
love that.
all right, let me just. Okay, I got. Jim has raised his hand. Um, and let me see what the chat box looks like, and then also participants. Okay, and the Q&A box. Let me get that open. No open questions. Jim, I guess you're raising your hand to say hello. So hello to you too. Jim is a regular attendee at our
It looks like Jim just
thing.
put a question in there.
There you go. Can you speak up? It's always hard to hear you. Yeah, sure, I can do that. Let me get this high tech professional microphone closer to my face. Jim, I hope that's better. Uh, so
Jim, can you hear me okay?
let's see.
Beautiful.
Yeah, all right, we're good. Okay, I'm just going to share for a minute and get my face off the. And we just got a few housekeeping things that we generally go to. Josh, let me know if you can see the title
Yep.
page. All right, and I'm just going to sort of shrink this.
Oh, I can see your screen right
You can
now.
see the screen. Okay, good. And I'm just going to see if I collapse this. If it does anything. Oh wait. All right, we're in. Basically, today we're going to talk about short-term lending.
Hey,
And
Joe, I just see your screen background from your desktop.
oh, really? All right. Let me just reshare, unshare, uh, stop sharing. All right, we're going to try this again, everybody. Thanks for your patience. Um, I'm going to share, and I'm going to pick this one, and we'll share that. Let me know when you can see a PowerPoint.
Yep, I can see it.
All right, we're good. Yeah, we're going to talk about something that I've been hearing a lot about at investor conferences this year so far. I've been to a lot of them, and a lot of the investors are still feeling the fallout from funds that got caught in the interest rate squeeze and syndications that got stranded, particularly in the multifamily area. And there's a lot of chatter about going back to shorter term lending, shorter term deals, maybe to fix and flippers or just putting the money out there for a time, a short time to not get caught up in any interest rate gyrations that we might face going forward. And so we've invited Josh Wollaston here to talk about that a bit. About Josh, he's the founder of he's the founder of SPG Capital, and he's a real estate investor to begin with, and he became a private lender as a result. So he's the founder, and I asked him what he did in his spare time, and he says he doesn't have any because he's got two twin infant boys at three. I guess three is not infant, and he's got one more on the way. So don't ask him about his golf game and anything like that. But anyway, just real quick, just I get this. Where's the little arrows to help me out? Oh, that's great. Just try to move this thing down again. No, I don't want to show the side panel. Well, I can't get this. Anyway, I'm going to put a disclaimer up and then I'm going to pull this thing down so that Josh can present. Um, look, we're here for strictly educational purposes. We're not we can't advise, we can't recommend, promote, or endorse any investment propositions. We put this up strictly for educational purposes. We're not lawyers. We're not CPAs, accountants. We're just the custodian So everything you do is between you and the people you invest with. I don't like to say that don't shoot us with a piano player, but you're kind of on your own when it comes to picking investments. So we always recommend that you get a team involved, get your CPA, your tax prep person, get a lawyer if necessary, and do your diligence. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and Josh is going to put up his slides, and we're going to go.
All right. Can you see full
I
screen?
I can see it.
All right. Beautiful. Hi, everybody. So thanks for the intro, Joe. As you mentioned, I don't have too much free time, but what I get to do during the day, I love, and that's help people with private lending. A little background on me. I was a corporate banker at Citibank when I graduated college, but I always knew that wasn't the last chapter for me. I wasn't going to be there forever. And I decided my vehicle to get out of the corporate life was to buy rental properties. It's all I knew. Rich dad, poor dad, opened my eyes to a whole nother world. So over from 2015 to 2023, all I focused on was, with my business partner, Alex, was stockpile as many rental properties as I can to replace my income from my W-2 and to one day be able to quit the job and go full time into real estate. So I was able to successfully do that only with the help of private lenders. So I actually started on the flip side. I wasn't a private lender. I was the real estate investor borrowing from private lenders. And what I realized through that process, I didn't really know any other financing existed. I was buying properties that were distressed. Banks wouldn't give us loans on it because they didn't want to deal with having to foreclose or taking over properties that weren't fixed up. And most of the time, what we were buying was properties that needed to close in 10 days, right? Which is why we were able to get them at a discount. So we always had to raise money. It started with family, then it became family and friends. And that's how we funded all of our projects. So up till today, we have it's actually close to 60 units in the portfolio that are all rental properties. And so that was able to get me out of my full-time job at Citibank in early 2023. And at that same time, once I went full-time into entrepreneur life, our deal flow started to shrink. And as we're paying back all of our private lenders on our projects that we're fixing, we were fixing up, we were renting them out. And instead of selling them and gaining a profit, we were going to the banks to get long-term loans to keep them as rental properties. So once we'd get the refinance from our end lender on like a 30-year loan, we'd pay back our private lenders. And we've been doing that for years and years. And once we stopped having as many deals of our own, our private lenders, we'd pay them back and they'd say, well, hey, I love this aspect. It is truly passive income. You've gotten me through the door. I love it. Don't you have another deal? And at the time, we're like, well, we don't have anything. And after like a month or two of the same kind of story of paying people back, a kind of light bulb moment was, we've already done the hard work. We've shown these private lenders of ours, which were, at the time, a lot of family, friends, people close to us. They had gotten used to this investment strategy and they wanted to continue. And we realized we could never satisfy all the money they had that they wanted to invest with our own projects. So that was the switch to say, you know what if we become the lenders and help our private lenders when we don't have enough deals, we can connect them with other real estate investors in our circle. So that's been the last 2 years. All I focused on is private lending. So it's something that for me was perfect timing because I love real estate, but I even more so love helping people, especially like my family members who are nearing retirement that are looking to diversify their investment strategy. They don't want to be tied to the stock market. Having something like private lending can be 100% passive, 100% backed by real estate gives them a great tool to kind of, ride any sort of wave that's happening in the market to give them some stability and predictability. So that's kind of where we've landed today is, my whole goal is helping other people get involved in real estate passively through private lending and not going through what I did, which was buying 60 properties one at a time, dealing with tenants, dealing with toilets. For some people, it makes sense, but for other people who just want stable income, private lending is the way to go. It's the only way to truly make passive income. So I'm going to ask a question here, and hopefully for those that aren't driving, if you could message in the chat, how many people are familiar with short-term real estate lending?
Well, I certainly am.
All right, we got one.
Got
Or
one.
maybe you are, a private lender already. I'm
Got a
going to
couple,
I'm going to
couple people have
assume there's
raised
a
their hands.
mix.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume there's a mix, but so I'm just going to start with this first page, basic of what private lending is, and why it's needed. So, short-term real estate lending is a 6 to 12 month loan, somewhat known as like a bridge loan, to a real estate investor or developer for a fix and flip project. So think of the house down the street from you. It needs a bunch of work. Someone's going to need to buy it and fix it up a whole lot, right? When they go out and try to get a loan, they can't go to the bank, right? The banks don't want to touch these properties that aren't fully fixed up. And usually the case is these properties, the sellers need to sell fast, right? They just want their cash. They want out. There's some sort of distress and they need to sell in, as quickly as a couple days to, as long as like 20 days. So real estate investors can't just go to the bank and say, hey, I want to buy this property. I'm going to do a renovation to it. It needs a bunch of work. Can you give me a loan? They're going to say, well, yeah, I mean, we could probably do it, but it's going to take 30 to 45 days, at which point the opportunity is gone. So that's why private lenders fill that gap of, speed, convenience. And because of that, private lenders are able to charge a little bit more. So that's why it makes it, appealing for people in their investment plan because, it's just another tool. They can earn recurring revenue through a mortgage payment and be able to capitalize. So another reason you should consider it for an investment plan. And I know, I stumbled into Cayman Plan because I was a real estate guy myself, and Cayman Plan is somewhat in the area known as, real estate centric. So I was kind of pointed this direction, and I didn't even know these IRAs existed 4 or 5 years ago. But when it comes to an IRA, having it as a tax advantage plan or tax deferred, the income from private lending, if you were to do it through your own capital, is taxed as ordinary income, right? Kind of like
Absolutely.
a CD, any sort of interest income you earn from the bank, taxed the same way. So it's not really a tax haven. But when you do it through an IRA and you can compound it, it's a no-brainer. So one of the other big perks is with private lending, it should be more predictable, right? You have set terms with your borrower of, hey, these are the terms of my loan to you. It's going to be a 6 to 12 month project. You're going to have collateral on the property as the lender. So you're the first one to get paid. You have a tangible asset there that you've invested in. And you can then be the bank, right? That's the whole goal. Since the banks don't want to get involved, private lenders fill that void. And private lenders are then able to be the bank and receive passive income through what I prefer to say to collect monthly payments on your loan from these borrowers. So that's why it exists. And it's a huge need, especially I'm in the Delaware area, and we buy a bunch of properties in PA near Camel Plan. In the Delaware, PA, Jersey area, the market is still crazy. More people were involved in fix and flips than ever before, right? Because of all the TV shows. So the demand is just through the roof. Let's switch to the next slide. All right, so quickly on the current landscape. I actually saw a graph not too long ago, I think it was last week, how there's a huge amount of supply. The supply and demand shift for housing in the US has completely shifted. And there's a ton more supply than there is demand. And I read that, I like to read those things just to see what's going on, but real estate will always be hyper local. You can never look at a graph that's across the US because you're going to incorporate California, Texas, Florida, where there's just been huge waves up and down, up and down. In our market, nice and stable. There's going to be steady inclines, or has been steady inclines for a long time, and there's not as much fluctuation. So when I read those types of headlines, I take it with a grain of salt, as should you. And In terms of outlook of where I see things going, I think, Joe kind of hit on it before. Some of these syndications, that promise certain rates, interest rates have squeezed them. But in the private lending space, this has been around, private lending's been around for a long time. It used to be attorneys that were the ones lending, right? Because they knew the paperwork, they usually had the capital, and it wasn't as mainstream as it's becoming. And those interest rates, what you're able to charge through private lending, usually is like 10 to 12% annually, and maybe some fees, right? The borrower will pay you some fees to get the loan. That hasn't changed in years. Since I've been borrowing since 2016, it was the same. Even when some institutional money got into the game, it's still going to stay about the same. So the interest rate headlines, what the only concern I have with it is if you're funding a project that is either going to be sold when they're done or they're going to refinance and keep it, that's all you're worried about is the exit strategy. Right? You just want to make sure that your money's going to come back to you because whoever's going to buy it, or if they're going to be able to refinance it, hopefully there's no huge increases in rates that would affect it.
Yeah,
So,
so many deals ended up being not fix and flips, but fix and rents.
yep,
Yeah, so they couldn't
yep.
unload them. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean it's actually right where I'm going, Joe, is like in terms of what we've kind of been doing different because of the landscape. We're trying to stay away from large rehabs or long-term loans. So we're trying to keep it very basic, 6 to 12 months, cosmetic type fixer-uppers, no huge rehabs. I mean, I can tell you from experience, we still do some real estate investing ourselves, and we did a big ground up project in a very desirable area, Media, PA. And our initial budget when we looked 12 months ago was, hey, we're going to spend 200 grand to get this thing done. Fast forward a year, all the tariff headlines, it was more like 250, right? So just knowing that there is uncertainty in that landscape, I would try to stay away from anything long term.
Okay.
All right, so for ideal loans, so in our landscape, when we're lending to another real estate investor who's in our circle, right? There's certain things we look for, right? You're going to look at the borrower, which is probably the most important piece, right? You're betting on the jockey. You're not so much betting, the property is very important. There's no doubt about it. But the person you're lending to is the primary concern. You need to know, like, and trust that person before you can give them any money and believe what they say they're going to do, they're going to do it. Then obviously you have to underwrite the property, right? You have to make sure the project they have in mind, what their plan is, you agree with it, and you think that it's going to be successful, and they're going to be able to pay you your money back through a sale or through refinance. And then the ideal loan, how's it changed over time? I just mentioned the 6 to 12 month range. Try to keep it close. No big rehabs at the moment. I would try to keep it very cookie cutter so that you know your money's coming back to you, and just rinse and repeat. So in terms of finding borrowers, I hear a lot, and I kind of fell into this space, right? That's why I'm a lender, is because I had a lot of private lenders who relied on me for a long time to be their deal flow. And when I stopped buying as much, their deal flow went to nothing, which is the reason I started this company, is to still give them a way to be a private lender and let me find the real estate investors because I'm in the area. And our main motto that we live by when trying to find new borrowers is, when you meet this person, you talk to them, do you believe that is someone you would bring around your family and friends? Would you be proud to say, I'm lending money to this person? Because that's going to spell character immediately. That's your gut telling you, is this a good person that I believe in is going to do a good job or a good operator? If you don't answer yes to that question, don't do it, right? So right off the bat, gut check. But then the other things you need to look at is, so for example, we did 60 deals last year. We funded 60 deals for other people through our fund. We didn't have one single default. And I can tell you the reason for that is because anybody we've lent to is not a newbie. They all have experience. They all own and have equity in more than at least 10 properties. So that gives me peace of mind knowing this person has experience. They've been there and done that. They've seen everything, right? I mean, I have some people who've done their first real estate project and it just goes south. My first real estate project went south. So I don't even like messing around with those. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody. I would try to find people who are actually full-time in the game that know what they're doing, and have the track record, put your money towards them. Don't mess around with the newbies who've never done one. They've watched a couple shows. Now they want to do it with their wife. Don't be the test pig. Don't be the test guinea pig on that. And then capacity. Some people try to grow too quickly, right? I have a couple real estate investors in my circle that we've lent to before, and I can just see they're getting it over their head. They got the bug. The first couple projects have worked out. Now they're at 10. Now they're trying to scale super fast. But there comes a balance with scaling. So you want to make sure that the people you're lending to aren't taking on more than they can chew. In terms of terms to borrowers, right? We are what I would say our terms are, we are 12%. So for a borrower, right? If they try to come get a loan from us, we say, hey, it's 12% and 3 points. 3 points means a fee up front, 3 percentage points of the loan you're paying to a fee to get the loan. That's been pretty standard for a long, long time. And still we have a ton of demand no matter what. So if you're a private lender, I'm sticking to that threshold. I probably wouldn't budge because you don't have to, at least right now. If interest rates go climbing down and institutional lenders get back in, maybe. But right now we have the advantage. So I would stick to around that range. In terms of the loan, right? Remember, your worst case as a private lender, the passive income is great, but it can quickly switch to not passive if something goes wrong with the property and you have to take it over. So always make sure when you're looking at the deal in hand, is this a deal that you would have enough room to take over, finish yourself, or fire sale it and get your principal back? That's what we live by. When we look at a deal, we know, look, does this deal work well enough that if we had to take it over, we could finish it and make money? If that checks the box and it's a borrower that we know and trust and like, the deal's good. So the way we look at that is the loan amount. We will not loan anything over 70% of the ARV, which is the after repair value. Now, I have a deal example on the next page to kind of show you some numbers. So I'll touch on that. But average loan size that we're seeing, and we're strictly in the residential space right now. Mostly single family, some 1 to 4s, 4 units if someone's trying to keep it as a rental. But our average loan size, we're looking at 200 to 300,000. Always, no matter what, if you're doing a loan, please get the paperwork signed. A promissory note, a loan, and a guarantee does not protect you. You need a first lien mortgage, just like the bank would make you do, that is recorded, the local county office, showing that you are on mortgage for this property. That is your collateral, right? These real estate investors have signed thousands, well, hundreds, maybe thousands of guarantees. Okay. Guarantees don't matter. They do matter, but if something goes south, everyone's going after this guy. So you need to make sure you have first rights to this property. So please don't let anyone convince you just to do an off the book loan. Please, just in case anything ever goes wrong, you have it. Loan terms, 6 to 12 months. A real estate investor shouldn't need more than that, right? If they're doing a very cosmetic fix and flip, unless they get issues with local permits or municipality, they should be in and out of that rehab and sold or refinanced within 6 to 9 months. Nobody should need 12 months. It's mind-boggling that some people do 12-month loans. And I get it. If I'm a private lender, I just want my money out there as long as possible. As long as they're paying me, great. But on the flip side is that real estate investor is going to put your property on the back burner because they know they don't have to force it. They have other people like me who are 6-month loans that make them get it done quicker and recycle back. So try to stick to 6 to 12 months. Always collect monthly interest payments. When I was a real estate investor, I've seen both sides, right? When I was a real estate investor, I paid all my private lenders at the end because why not, right? Cash management's an issue. You're going through a rehab. Maybe you spend a little more. Cash could be tight. But as a lender, you're on the flip side, you need to be the first one to get paid. You don't want that balance to just accrue over time and then you get paid off at the sale. Try to collect them monthly. It's also a good indicator, right? You'll know while you're collecting those monthly payments. You'll be the first to know if something's going wrong. right? Otherwise, you have to go to the property every month and check in on it. You'll know if his payment defaults or it gets bounced, you know, red flag, okay, something's up. I need to look into it, right? So it's early indications. And the status quo is collecting interest only payments monthly. So I would still, even if you're a private lender, still try to collect monthly. Protects you, and that's what's most important. All right, so here's a quick deal example, a standard fix and flip that we funded in Wilmington, Delaware. It's a local market of ours. This real estate investor is someone who, he has track record, he has assets, right? He's got 10 plus rental properties, he's got experience doing flips, and he actually found a direct to seller lead. So this was not a deal that hit the market. The seller contacted him, had to close quick. I think they had to close in 2 weeks. And he came to us saying, hey guys, I have this property for $150,000 is my purchase price. I plan to spend $80,000 in a renovation. Here's my scope of work. I think the property is worth 400,000, 410. So then our job as lenders is, okay, well, first off, we know the borrower, we like them, we trust them. That part's good. Let's take a look at this property. So your job is to really be an underwriter, right? You need to check the facts, make sure this house is going to be worth a significant amount more than what your loan is. So on the previous page, I mentioned you don't want to lend any more than 70% of what it will be worth when it's done. So if you look at the top right here, he asked for 150 for a purchase and 80,000 for a renovation, right? So his total loan that he was looking for was 230,000. When we looked, we said, okay, look, based on this property, where it's located and what has sold around it that's comparable, this property is going to be worth 400 grand. So this is a home run deal. They're not always like this, but when you see, wow, the loan to what it would be worth at the end is 56%, take it and run. Okay. is my advice. But just for sites, right? Even if the loan was 250 or 260, it's still a really good deal. And what's important is the difference between these two, right? If it's worth 410 at the end, once the renovation's done, and your loan is 230, there's a $180,000 difference here of cushion. And that is what you need to consider because that is your fallback. If something goes wrong through this project and you need to take it over, is there enough room for you after paying attorney fees to do the default and the foreclosure process? Are you able to still have enough meat on the bone to either fire sale it right away if you're not a real estate investor, or if you're someone like me, I know, okay, my worst case is I'm going to take this project over, bring my GC in, fix it, and sell it. And I'll get all principal back plus some. So the final outcome of this was he finished the rehab in about 4 or 5 months. He listed for sale. The market is still hot, in my opinion, in desirable areas that range, that fall in that first time home buyer or the family who's getting a little bigger that needs more space. They're still flying off the shelf. So he got over asking. And when he sold the property, our principal was paid back at closing. We're the first ones to get paid. The mortgage is satisfied and the deal is done. But throughout that project, we were collecting monthly interest payments from this guy. So we were getting our piece first, no matter what was going on. If he's going over budget, whatever's happening, we're collecting our interest so that we can pay our investors. Still always recommend that, no matter what. So I talk to private lenders a lot, and I know IRAs are a big place that private lenders go because it makes complete sense for the tax purposes I mentioned before. And what I've seen from experience is you usually fall into lending because someone close to you has proposed the idea to you, right? Maybe there's someone in your family or your friend group who knows that you're somewhat savvy with investments and they're looking for a loan, right? They probably realize, oh shoot, I can't just go to anyone. The banks aren't going to fund it. Who am I going to try and call that I know is investor savvy? And that's usually how people kind of fall into it, right? Or you are in the real estate field, maybe you're an agent, you don't really have as much time to do the fix and flips yourself, but you have a nice IRA and you know that it's a good collateralized investment. But what happens is over time, things change, kind of like what happened in my scenario. I stopped buying. So my private lenders were kind of stuck. Well, Josh, I mean, do you have anything else? Because the last thing you want to do is spend time, what's supposed to be a passive investment, trying to now go out during the day and find new borrowers. But that really is what it comes down to, right? The borrower is the most important thing. So what I tell people who have a hard time finding deals, right? Or maybe their go-to borrower, fix and flipper, moves on, or who ever knows what happens. Maybe they go and do something else. You need to think, where are people at who operate it like a business? Where are the fix and flippers who treat it like a business that I would know, like, and trust to borrow money from me? And real estate investors are crazy. Although we're all solopreneurs, we still like to get together with other crazy people that are like us. And that's at local real estate groups, right? They're a little painful to go to because you'll go there. And especially if you say you're a private lender, you're going to have 30 people tell you, hey, I got a deal. I have a deal. I have a deal. But most of them, I'm going to be honest with you, most of them are tire kickers, or it's their first deal. And at which point I would say steer clear. You do not want to babysit. But you may find that one or two people who are in it to win it, and they could be a good connection for you, right? Um, but the people that I would recommend you go after are the ones who are at the top, right? The ones that are doing a lot of business. They have a good name for themselves in the community. They are posting stuff on social media so you can see, accountability in terms of the work they do. And those people are usually going to be at lunch, either at conferences during the day or lunch events, right? Real estate specific lunch events, because they're full time. That's where they're going to be. Like, I have young kids, so I haven't been to the late night real estate group in a while, just because, since I'm in it full time, I try to do stuff during the day with other people who are doing stuff during the day. So that's kind of a better way to get in with people that are in it to win it. Paid groups are always a good one, right? Paid masterminds are a good way to get through. And then, of course, referrals. Sometimes you just have to put it out there that, hey, is anybody have, a real estate project they're looking to have funding, or ask around in your circle. With things nowadays, there are plenty of people involved in real estate. So I think there's plenty more out there than you probably think are. You just have to put it out there. In terms of demographics, price points, housing types, these all kind of roll into the same thing with me. And I'm a very conservative person. And what I would recommend is stay in your backyard, stay in the market you know. So I'm in northern Delaware. My business partner's in southeastern PA. We own all of our properties. All the projects we do are in those areas. And that's the only place we lend, because we can underwrite the deals, we know values, we have connections, and we know what the exit strategy is going to be. So if someone's purchasing a property that they're going to keep as a rental, chances are I know that area well. I know what it'll rent for, and I know that there's a very good chance the exit strategy is going to work out. So I would try to stick to where you are. That way, if you want to pop in on the project from time to time and just kind of drive past it, you can do it. If you fund a project, 3 hours away, you're really just banking on your borrower giving you updates, whether it's pictures or videos, or you just getting paid. And something about the unknown scares me. So I like being throwing distance away from the deals we lend on. And housing types, again, stick to what you know and what you would be comfortable taking over, because that is your worst case. So if you're funding a deal 4 hours away, your worst case is you're going to have to take that over. So do you know an attorney in that state who could help you? Do you have a contractor there who could help you fix or sell it? Do you know people who could potentially buy it there if you were to have to take it over and fire sale it? So all those things you need to consider, and always think in terms of my worst case. Because your best case is money gets paid, comes back to you, and then you have to do it again. And at some certain point, right, if you do many, many, many deals, something at some point is going to go sideways. Now, maybe not to that extent, but you have to keep that front of mind. All right, any questions? I haven't been able to look at the Q&A, so I want
Yeah,
to see if there's
let's.
anything in
There
there.
are a few. Yeah. First, person didn't give a name, but are PA and Delaware laws conducive to and pro private lenders?
Yes. Yep. We also lend in Jersey, and I know the Jersey foreclosure process is a bit more brutal. Thankfully, I haven't had to go through it, but Delaware and PA are definitely pro private lenders. And I would say they're more so pro real estate investors too. Outside of Philly, obviously with what's going on there in terms of rental properties and getting people out. Everything else is pretty investor friendly and private lender friendly.
Okay, good. Then, same person, I think, is asked, do you outsource the collection of monthly payments and also underwriting assessment of the property? This is a case where, I've used FCI and some of the loan servicers before because you have to have somebody in between you and the borrower as far as that goes. Do you outsource that, or do you do your own collections? Do you provide servicing for people that you put together?
We do it all. So
Okay.
in
Yeah.
our model, yes, we have a fund in our model. So we have a pooled share of money that, once we kind of stop buying as many in our private lenders for looking for a place, we build a fund to allow them to invest, and then we are in charge of finding the deals, underwriting it. So underwriting happens. Me and my partner Alex, we underwrite every deal. So the
Okay.
moment a deal comes in, we're underwriting as if it were our own, right? Would we want to take this property over? I would never recommend outsourcing that, um, just because you're the one who's going to be stuck holding the bag. So you need to feel confident in the deal. It's one thing to ask, maybe, if you have a local agent, you want to ask, definitely get feedback, but just make sure that you've done your own due diligence. And then, yeah, we run a ACH payment run on the first of every month. So the first of every month, we have our flippers banking information, and each month on the first, we're running an ACH debit to pull from their account, just like any other mortgage. So we handle all the servicing for our loans. Um, yep, every month.
Okay. All right. Good. And this may be an answer to Jim's question. Are you encouraging us to go solo or to provide you with capital? I think it's the latter, that you're investing in this fund. Do your mortgage docs have a 6 to 12 month payoff? And I think that's how you structure your loans with
Yeah.
everyone that's in the pool, right?
Jim, honestly, it depends on the scenario. I would say if you establish you have an IRA set up and you have connections, you have someone in your circle that you can know and trust to lend to, I would do that because you're able to charge 12 and 3, let's just say. You have a personal connection, and your return is probably going to be a little better, and you probably feel a little safer knowing the person. Um, when you get to the point that you don't have the deal flow, that's when I think you start to look for alternatives, because the last thing you want is you have this IRA, or self-direct IRA, that you're waiting for let's say you have a borrower in mind, you're waiting for them to get a new deal. And meanwhile, that money's kind of sitting idle. You don't really want to move it because what if he gets a deal and you need it back in a couple days? So before you know it, you're kind of, there's a drag to it. You're not making anything on that money.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you have consistent deal flow, and you have the proper documents and the teams, I would still try to do it yourself. But, it's every person's different. So I would say if you're in the real estate game, I would try to do it yourself. If you do just want to be a little bit more passive and you like the idea of a fund that is collateralized by this business, and you don't have to worry about collecting money because you're going to get paid every month by being in the fund, that would be the better way to go.
Yeah, that's a nice pro and con explanation there. Jim, I hope that answers your question. Gary wanted to know, we're getting into deal
Yes.
structure or fund
Okay.
structure questions now. Gary wants to know, do you need to be accredited to be in the fund? And Terry wants to know what the returns typically are. And Stanley, yeah, let's talk
All
about
right. So
let's
let
talk
me
about
so
minimums and things like that.
okay. So then that was a good stopping point then. So I'm going to go through just one or two slides here. I think you
Go
guys are
ahead.
getting the gist of the difference between a fund and doing the lending yourself, and then we can get into some of
Okay.
the returns. So I just kind of hit on what alternatives exist, right? You have a fund that does private lending in a local community, and that's kind of what we've built to now. We have a little over $5 million in our fund right now that we lend out, and we have it pretty much all out on the street. We have more deals than we have money, and that's more so because we're in the game, right? We have a plethora Rolodex of borrowers because we're in the space. So that gives us a unique advantage because sometimes it's the same deals we're trying to buy ourselves. A local connect or colleague of ours gets the deal, and they know that they can rely on us to close, right? I think what a lot of people miss out on is when you're a real estate investor, you have so many hats you have to wear to get a deal done. You have to work with the seller. You have to sometimes work with an agent. You have to get inspections done before you have financing, right? Which is the biggest piece of it, right? You have to get the funds needed. Then you have to get your rehab. You have all these components. And what I've noticed is people just like to know, especially real estate investors, they like to know that a lender is going to close the deal. So if you can just be a man of your word and say, "Yep, we're going to close on this date," you're going to set yourself up apart from the 90% of the other more so public, bigger lending companies out there because they don't have control of the money. Something could go south, terms might change, and there's a bad taste left in their mouth. So there is a plethora
Mm.
of qualified borrowers out there who are just looking for consistency and someone they can rely on. So I kind of hit on this. Why do private lenders look more so towards the passive option? And I think that question in itself is the biggest answer, right? Private lending is meant to be passive. That's the whole basis of it, right? Be the bank, collect your payments. But there are processes within it when you are the lender that aren't passive, right? If you do want to collect monthly payments, that's an extra task for you, or you have to outsource it and pay for that. You need to continually find deal flow. So it's great when someone finishes a project to pay you back, but now I need to go find another deal because my money's just sitting. So it's great that I made 12% and a couple points, but I might go a month or two with it sitting there. Maybe it's making zero if you have it, stuck, or you can partially move it back and forth and make a couple percent. But then there's a drag. So is your return really the 12%? Probably not because it's not out on the street. What if the one borrower stops, like what happened with us and our investors? And then the other big thing that I think is a big perk for a fund versus lending. And I remember having this conversation with my uncle when we just started lending to other people. I told him, I said, look, we're gonna instead of this deal being with me, we're gonna lend to a really close colleague of mine. And his worry is, Josh, if something goes wrong with one loan, I'm screwed, is what he said. He says, I don't have the team to handle anything. If I'm on the mortgage and stuff, it's on me to get an attorney. It's on me to, work things out with the borrower. I might not get my money back. Instead of it being 6 months, it might be 18, 24 months. You just never know. And he goes, it's almost more risky to be in one deal than if I could somehow just be across all of them. And that's kind of was a big light bulb for us to say, you know what, for a fund model, if we have, let's say, 50 deals at a time, which I think we're like 44, our investors are invested into a pool, right? So depending on how much money you put in, which our minimum's 100 grand, um, whatever you put in, you have part ownership, right? You're an equity partner with a capped return. So our two offerings, you have, if you commit to 2 years, I kind of explain it like a CD. If you commit for 2 years, you will earn 10% on your money paid out monthly, or you can reinvest it. So a lot of the IRA investors we have, they just compound it because, it's growing tax free anyway. So let's just accelerate it and each month reinvest it. Um, or there's a 1 year option. So if you commit for 1 year, invest for 1 year, it's a 9% return. And what that does though is your 100,000, if you just call it even, your 100,000 is spread across all of our deals instead of just being in one. So if we have 44 deals out and one, knock on wood, starts to, have some bad signs and is going into default, and maybe they miss their monthly payment, we have the other 43 monthly payments coming in to make sure all the investors get paid. So the diversification of a portfolio of loans is a good hedge against just being into one deal.
All right.
I kind of already hit on this, but obviously when you're a private lender, it all falls on you, or you
Mhm.
have to outsource some of it versus being in a passive fund as a passive investor. It all lies on the fund, which in this case is us. So from finding deals, good deals, underwriting the deals, managing the closings, making sure the collateral's in place, servicing it, managing the borrowers, which can be a challenge from time to time, right? Because they're all over the place, right? You have to keep ties on them. And then, God forbid, dealing with foreclosures, collecting payments, managing payoffs, and then doing it all over again. So, in terms of what we offer, I kind of just hit on this, but like I mentioned, we have 5 million bucks now. I think we have enough demand just through our local connections on our current deal flow coming in that we could satisfy $10 million in loans at a time. So we're half capitalized in my eyes at this moment. So every week we have to turn down deals, really good deals with great people because we don't have enough money. So it's a good problem to have, right? A lot
Mhm.
of private lenders would say the opposite. So we found ourselves into a good foothold with that. And then we just have the two very basic options. We try to keep it as basic as possible. No crazy waterfalls. Our investors are the first ones to get paid every month. So granted, there's no upside, right? Like you might get in a syndication, but it's consistent, it's collateralized, and it's predictable. So each month, you know, you're going to get your payment on the 15th of the month. You're going to get your statement, and it's clockwork, right? So we're collecting money from our borrowers on the first, collect as everything that we can, and then on the 15th, sending out each of our investors returns based on how much they put in. So either they're earning 9% on their money for that month, or they're earning 10%. So that's annualized rates, of course. We're not in that great of shape over here to do that monthly, but still, it's such a great business model, I must say. And for the IRAs, a lot of the IRA people that we have in, if they're not of age where they're taking distributions, they're just reinvesting. So instead of getting that monthly distribution, they say, hey, reinvest it, because then the return goes from in the 2-year model, instead of it being 10, because you're compounding each month, it's more like 11. So
Mhm.
it's just accelerating quicker and quicker and quicker as time goes on.
So I think, just if I could just jump in, I think, Gary, that answers your couple of your questions about being accredited. Yes.
Yes,
and
accredited.
and the minimum is 100K. And Terry, your first question about what the returns are, yes, it's an even return and it doesn't vary.
Hmm.
And then yeah, it doesn't vary. And yes, Terry, yes, qualified and Roth money works. Yeah, we do these all the time. I do it with my IRA and my 401K. Um, and then let's see, that answers Gary's. And then Stanley wanted to know, can you partner up with other SDIRAs or outside partners to fund deals? And what would that look like? On individual ones, this is not the fund. Obviously, you can put your non-qualified money and your qualified money into this fund. And you can also have other people, you know, interested that want to invest in this fund. But on individual deals, I do that all the time. If I've got enough to satisfy 80% of what the borrower needs, and my wife or one of my coworkers here has the other 20%, we do that all the time. If the borrower will accept it
Hmm.
and can make the payments back, according pro rata, according to the share. So just getting the questions, some of these questions kind of out of the way. Let me know if I did not answer your question. And then Terry, how long after investing or funding do monthly checks begin?
So Terry, for the fund model, your interest begins accruing the moment the money comes in the door. So the moment the funds are deposited into our account, interest starts accruing. So what is today? So for example, if
Uh,
someone invested today, your first payment would be for the 25 days in June. You would receive that on July 15th.
mm.
So, but your interest starts accruing immediately, and your first payment would be whatever that following payment run would be.
Yeah, and that's a good advantage, because some funds, they encourage you to send the funds towards the end of the month because they're not going to put it to work until the first.
Yeah.
So that's a huge advantage. Um, okay, if you've got more, let's see it.
That's pretty much it. I mean, that was my
Okay,
appendix there, just to in case someone had specific questions. So
I've got a few,
yeah, hit me.
and Jim, you're welcome anytime. We're glad you come in, and you always have decent questions. So you're part of this discussion. And again, I encourage people to pipe up and talk, and let us know what they're thinking. Uh, the first question is, um, Plan B. I mentioned earlier that a lot of fix and flips for a while there. It's not so much anymore. It became fix and rents, and so I've asked people that are borrowing money from me for a Plan B. If you're not able to refi and exit, um, you know what what's the alternative? Does the rent structure for that particular property support continued interest payments, or am I adventurous enough to work out some sort of an equity deal that lets me hang on, and I share, for each month that my equity stake in the property grows and I end up profiting that way? I mean, how do you handle that kind of stuff?
Yeah, same thing. That's why I try to stick to certain areas, and price points, because
Mm,
someone might go in there saying, "Look, I'm gonna." I mean, actually, let me backpedal here. So I would say 50% of our loans are going in with the goal of, "Hey, we're gonna keep this and refinance it." I like that angle so much better because there's less unpredictability, right? You're not trying to find a buyer. Rents are still, there's still a lack of supply out there for quality rentals, especially single family townhome in decent areas. So I like that angle much better because all you're relying on is an appraiser, right? It's all based off
right.
what is that house going to appraise to figure out if we're going to get paid back in full. So I'd say 50% of our loans are that, 50% are fix and flips. And then the fix and flips, I that's why I try to stay away from anything that's luxury, unless you have a really good connection with, and we have some of those that are really qualified people who are builders in such cases, right? They know what they do. They have it down to science. But I would try to keep it first time home buyer market, because the worst case is, yeah, if they can't sell it or something happens in the market and the buyers aren't attracted to it, right? There should be enough skin in the game with the loan that they're still going to be able to get out and get you fully paid. But if
Right.
for some reason that it drops way more than anyone can imagine, as long as it can work for a rental and they can get you majority of the money back, I think that's a win. And then you can work out, like your point, Joe, maybe you can work out some sort of structure that all the rent payments are going to continue to come to me until I'm paid off, or whatever it may be.
Mm,
That as a worst case is still a good option, right? As a
okay.
potential fallback option.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, and in some instances where I have a really experienced borrower and he's a deal fell through,
Hmm.
before the end of the term to sell a house, and he's like, "Look, I know there's going to be other buyers for this. This guy just couldn't get his financing, and I might, I'll let him accrue the interest because I've done
Hmm.
so many deals with him. I'm comfortable with that. And then let's say he sells 30, 60 days later, and he's got not only my principal return to me, but 2 extra months of interest because the rental didn't support that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's basically anything goes as long as as long as you cover yourself. Um, Another question I have is, okay, you're handling all of the due diligence that you do your comp research on the
Hmm.
neighborhoods. You're doing a title search to make sure the property's free and clear. You're doing the servicing. You're obtaining a statement of work, I guess,
Hmm.
and you're on the certificate of insurance in addition to having the mortgage filed at the
Great
courthouse.
point.
Got it.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, we have a great. I don't know if anyone is a private lender here. I don't know who does your loan paperwork and such, but we use an attorney out of Wilmington, Delaware. I searched when we first got into this space. I searched for months trying to find an attorney who knew what the hell was going on, because it is very niche, right? Private lending's niche. And we found this guy. His name's Bill Dolan. And I'm happy to make introductions if anybody needs me to. He has been an absolute game changer. He's been in the space for a long time. He knows, especially in my market, like he's done this so long that from time to time send him a new deal and say, "Hey, here's the deal structure." He works up all the paperwork. He even knows some of the borrowers. He's like, "Look, Josh, he can give me a heads up." I always tell him, if you ever see a name pop up that something went south on before, you need to let me know. But he's tied in so well that you need to have great people around you who know the places that you might not know, right? I know real estate like the back of my hand. I know lending well, but I don't know the legal side of it as well as he does. So if anybody needs an introduction, I would tell you, like, he's been a great advocate for us. He is a partner the way I see it, and having him on the team, making sure that all the legal docs, title's good, right, and clear. He's checking to make sure that title's doing the appropriate work, right, with the documentation and making sure all the things are signed, recorded. You gotta dot your I's and cross your T's.
Yeah, that's so true, and that's again another, having your own direct connection to the borrower, and there are things you can do there that you can't do inside of a fund. Obviously, as a fund
Hmm.
contributor, a fund investor, you don't have a direct claim on any of the underlying properties. But this kind of stuff that gets handled by an experienced operator it adds tremendous value to it. And it's a lot of peace of mind and things you don't have to worry about. Um, Terry was asking, so if the investor deposits 100K, how much do they receive per month? And correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's just if you do the 10% of 100K and divide it by 12. I mean, I'm in a lot of fixed deals like this, where if you just did your 10% times 100K, do your gazintas, and then divide that number by 12, that's what you would be receiving every month.
That's correct.
That's okay. And
Yep,
Terry,
I think $833 for that example.
all right, that's yeah. Terry, I hope that answers that question. Our anonymous person says, given the real estate correction and market crash predicted, do you have the option to recall the loan or cover for it in some form or shape to mitigate? So,
Oh, I love the first part of it because it's, real estate is very local. I mean, I'll give you two examples and then I'll answer the question. I just sold, or I'm in the process of selling a flip, or no, I'm sorry, selling one of my first rentals, right? We've had it for a long time. It's near the Philly airport and it's not really fixed up. It's rental grade. We're selling it for 230. We had three offers on it over asking
hmm,
in that price point. The other side, we're selling I mentioned we did somewhat of a ground up property in Media PA, very desirable. We listed it for 900,000 coming soon. Didn't even list it with pictures. We've officially sold that for 50,000 over asking, no contingencies. As long as you're in the right areas, there are plenty of buyers. People still need to move. Like my example, I have two young ones. I was in a townhouse. I tried to wait. I tried to wait as long as I could, just like everyone else has waited, right, for rates to come down. Last year, I just bit the bullet. I'm like, you know what? Marry the house, right? And I can deal with the rate another time. Just get me in. So honestly, I don't see a huge correction in our area. But like Joe mentioned earlier, what's the fallback? Is the fallback that someone's gonna have to keep it as a rental? If that's the fallback, take a look at those numbers as well, or make the borrower propose, hey, what would this rent for? What would that look like? And would it still cash flow? And really the main goal is, can you pay me fully back?
mm, okay.
So option to recall the loan only if the borrower does something that would trigger a default in the loan doc, right? So whether he misses a payment or and there's plenty of things in there you could get nitpicky about to take it over if you wanted to. But again, it depends what seat you're in. Are you a real estate investor who feels confident that you're going to be able to get rid of that property better than this person? If you think you can, then that's an option that you could do, but that would, I'd propose a better question is maybe you're not lending to the right person if you have to do that.
If you have to do that, and that material, you know, breaches of contract and failure to perform, I mean, that leads to a question that I have: do you dole out the borrower's funds based on the progress they make on? I mean,
Oh yeah.
you're gonna give them money to acquire the property, and then are you you know getting pictures or videos, and then and they're submitting invoices or whatever for what they're purchasing and that sort of thing. Are you doling it out, or you just say, hey, here's the funds, go do your thing?
Heck no, do never give them the funds. Never. Never do it. But I mean, look, sometimes again, I was on the flip side. I always wanted my private lenders to give me, yeah, I'll just take all of it now. You don't have to worry about it. But being the lender, you have to, because if something goes wrong, right? That
Right.
money, if you gave them renovation money up front and they run away from the project and you gave them 40 grand in a rehab, that's 40 grand that didn't go into the property. It's gone. So now your cushion that you thought is actually 40 grand less because they didn't use it towards it. So we try to hold back an escrow for whatever the rehab is. And then as they complete the work, they send us pictures and a video. Always ask them for a video walking in the front. Because I didn't have it happen to me, but I've heard of one guy actually just started in the house and sent a video of a different house showing that it was complete because he was losing control pretty much of all the projects. So make sure they send you a video walking in the front door. You can see the house and you can see the work that's done. And then you can, then disperse. Okay, here's your construction draw, as they call it, for the work that's
Draw.
been done. And that way they're continuing to work through the project. And then that's a
Great.
good way for you to know too that that there's progress. If you haven't been asked for money from if you haven't been asked for a draw, that's a complete indicator. Well, they haven't started your project yet. Because trust me, they're going to ask you the moment it's done.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Good. So, yes, you are doling it out. How much do you ask them to have in terms of skin in the game? They're coming.
Usually, it depends on the borrower specific. We try to keep it at like 10% would be the down payment. towards the purchase price,
Okay.
and then they're going to pay for closing costs up front.
Okay. All right. That's good. Couple more questions from our group. Are the monthly profits subtracted from the total earnings upon investor exit from the fund? How is this exit calculated? I think it, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm in a lot of these kinds of funds. You're getting paid interest, and when it comes time for you to leave,
Mm-hmm.
you get your principal back. Nothing's
Yep.
deducted from that. So you would get interest, and in times where they may take a little bit of time to send back your principal, like they do this on a schedule, or they may not have the funds to get you out at that moment. You will earn interest up until the day your principal is returned to you. I mean, that's the way the funds that I'm in work. Uh, Josh, that is that kind of the way
Yeah,
you think?
that's correct. So if you're a 1 year commitment, let's just say on that 1 year mark, we'd probably
Mm,
have a discussion 60 days before that to see, hey, how's it going? Are you think you want to reinvest at whatever we're offering then, or do you want your money back? And we have a continuous flow of deals getting paid off every month that we pretty much just set principal aside for whatever your amount is, and then once the commitment's done, we send back the principal.
all right. Okay.
But in terms
And
of profits, the profits, the first expense that goes out the door after we collect all the revenue from the month is to investors. And then whatever's left after that is used for business expenses, and then ultimately us as members of the fund, the rest is, our piece of it. So we don't have any sort of asset management fee. It's just strictly whatever the fund can make in addition to what our investors make is up to our discretion.
yeah, and you want to pay attention to that when you're looking at these. So some charge fees, some don't, because the margins are significant enough they don't need to.
Hmm.
So you want to kind of pay attention to that. There are other funds out there that are a little bit more risky, and might offer you a piece, like when they liquidate, or they have a set term they're going to unload these properties, and you may participate on the back end, but that's usually you're getting a much lower percentage on the upfront, or a lower percentage in the form of a preferred return, or preferred
Yep.
interest payments. So how long has Josh been doing this? I think you said
Uh,
2017, or
yeah, Terry, I bought my first property with a private lender in 20, oh my gosh, I think 17 or 16. And then I was always raising money for my own projects up till 2023. So we've been doing the lending piece to other real estate investors for almost 2.5 years.
okay. All right. And then, yes, Terry, the presentation, you'll get a link. Everybody that signed up, whether they're watching it live or not, because a lot of people sign up so that they can watch it at night, you'll get a link to the replay of this video, as will Terry, and I mean, as will Josh, for his library. So everybody will receive this. And then I think the final, oh, you got an attaboy from Tony Youngs, who is Par
Thanks,
excellence,
Tony.
one of the most interesting real estate investors that I've ever encountered. He specializes in off-market properties, and if you get a chance to see him, go watch him, because it's an area of real estate that's just fascinating. So yeah, that's great. Um, Sorry if I missed the point earlier. Anonymous says, is SPG looking to bring clients with capital to participate? Yes. And to be able to scale by how much in the next 2 years? Yes, I think he's raising money for the fund. The first part of the presentation was to give you an idea what it took to do private lending in the fix and flip space, or in the fix and rent space. And I think the second part segued into, yeah, well, we do all of this for you because we have this fund. So I think SPG, are they looking to bring on clients with capital to participate in private lending, to be able to scale by how much in the next 2 years? So where do you see yourself 2 years
Yeah, you know
hence?
what? I think it's a supply and demand thing, right? So I mentioned before, we easily could suffice $10 million in loans at a time. So right now, in my mind, we'll raise to 10 million, kind of see where we're at, because where I see it is I have such a great group of borrowers that let me sleep well at night, knowing that everything's in good hands, right? I'm not dealing with any defaults, no big problems, knock on wood. The moment you try to grow too fast and I say, oh, I want to go to 20 million, then I have to expand my borrower network, which then pulls me a little further away than maybe I want to. So we're going to take it by year. Right now, I would say we're trying to get to 10. We're at 5 now. And then we're probably going to level set, see, okay, based on deal flow and where we're at, how much bigger do we want to grow? because I would like to keep it where we are. I don't want it to be national because then you lose touch. I like the markets we're in. I like being comfortable knowing that I'm a drive away from any property we fund. And I think there's plenty enough in this market, right? Especially the Philly suburb market, that there's no reason we couldn't do 20 million. Just a matter of, this is more, I was a real estate investor that I took this on because I knew there was a need and I was helping my family get involved to continue to earn returns. And now I have family members who are relying on this for retirement, right? They've pulled money from other things because now they've exited their careers and they want fixed income monthly. So that's kind of why I'm doing this, is because I know there's such a need to get people involved in real estate. And this is the only way I found that you don't have to actually do a whole lot of work. So that's the only reason I'm in it. So probably see where it goes, but try to get to 10. And then, depending on how quality of life goes from there. And if I feel like it's a safe move to grow, we'll grow from there.
Just one background question. I mean, in doing fix and flip lending, I've been doing my own title searches, and I'm, bordering on just doing my own title insurance as well. Do you do deed in lieu with your borrowers, so you can skip the foreclosure process?
We do, and my attorney and I go back and forth on this because he says, in our areas when they've tried to use it, it hasn't really worked out as well as what it says it'll work out. Thankfully, I haven't had to deal with any. I know he has, but he says the couple times he tried to use it, it got shut. It got pretty much rejected. So
Oh,
we still have
okay.
it. We still have it signed, and every state jurisdiction is a little different. So we still have it signed, but would you actually use it? Depends on the situation. But in my mind, it's better to get it signed than not.
Yeah, yeah. One final question we got from Terry. Do you provide 1099s or K1s?
K1s, Terry, all of our investors are technically equity partners in the fund. It's just you get a set fixed return. So you would get K1s. I think it's termed as like guaranteed payment on the K1.
Okay.
So if that answers your question.
And then just for IRA people, the U any UBIT issues are dealt with in the K1, but you don't, there's a code in that one slot on the right hand, about halfway down there, that I look at when I get them to make sure there's no UBIT. But in this case, this is strictly passive, so there's no issues with UBIT. Well, this is good stuff, man. This is
Thank
great. Yeah, this
everybody
was a
for
lot of
hanging
fun.
with.
Yeah, really.
We went over,
We
so
went
I
over the
appreciate it.
top of the hour, so that's a good sign. Thanks everybody for the questions. Great questions. We really appreciate the input from the folks who visit with us and share their time with us. And Josh, this is a great value add for us. We love this information. Appreciate everything that you brought to the table today. So with that, we're all going to sign off, and we're all going to get on to our days, because I know I'm already way behind. So see everybody next week. Josh, I'll see you soon. Take care now.
Yes, sir.
Bye,
Thank
buddy.
everybody. See
All
ya.
right. Bye.